Oh, there it is.
Hello.
Nice. That's exciting. Great timing from everybody. Oh, we got no time for the lengthy hello, guys. We got to get right into it. This is always strikes last.
Exactly. If you found yourself here by accident, we are a podcast.
Yes.
Arguably a good one.
Maybe.
Stay a while and listen.
Sit down and listen to our sultry voices of
I'm
confusion
Deckard
and
Kane.
sometimes clarity.
Oh no, I'm Miles, and I'm joined by Matt and Jack, my co-hosts. This is a podcast.
Miles is correct.
Yes, I actually have been really enjoying. This is completely off topic. There's a Twitter account called I Am a Bear, and he just tweets things as though he's a bear, and it always ends with I am a bear. And I don't know, I just really love the format. Anyway, that's apropos of nothing. We have a great show for today. Not about bears, probably, depending on your definition of bear. But our special guest just back with a fresh cup of coffee. He is a host of the very popular podcast Party at the All Points, a playing member of Team Canada, a strong community member of the Canadian Age of Sigmar scene, and now AOS Worlds Commissioner Dayton Obre. Welcome to the show.
Active firefighter, executive
firefighter.
member of my union, shop steward, contract negotiator, welder, heavy duty mechanic, father of two, and host and fundraiser for muscular dystrophy.
Man,
So here's where we
Get
go.
it all, please. Okay.
I'm
Here's
sorry.
where we go like this.
I ran out of paper.
Yeah.
My
Can we
little
dust
notes
the
had
shoulders?
All right,
Let's dust that a little bit. There's a little bit left. Just a
we're
little bit more.
We're going to need a tome to list out all these Renaissance man aspects, Dayton. This is good.
Listen, when you get this old,
Indeed.
you accomplish a lot of things.
Oh, don't tell me that, because
Yeah.
then I'll have to do a checklist.
So,
Yeah.
so Dayton, the World's Commissioner thing, that's pretty recent news. What was up with that? What does a World's Commissioner do just before we're at this point?
Keeps everyone in line. Gets all the cap. It's basically you herd cats. You herd cats
Okay.
the whole time. You try to make everyone somewhat happy. You get them in apparel, and you put your own spin on the tournament as well. And you basically are helping the tournament organizer, which at this time is Tom Meegans
Nice.
of Amsterdam. He's hosting it once again. He won the vote again, so that's cool. Congratulations, Tom. You did such a good job the first time.
Ooh.
Or
Figured,
the
let
bar
it
was
ride.
so fucking low. He just managed to stay right above it.
Nice.
But yeah, basically making his job a lot easier and being the enforcer, which is cool.
That's nice. So it's like being a tournament organizer, for any level of tournament. This is just, there's more moving parts in this one, really, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, there's a couple more people usually.
Yeah,
A couple time zones to figure out.
exactly. Well, we did such a great job with time zones today. We were adding a fun fourth time zone to this podcast. Usually we get a guest from one of our times, and now the coordination was through the roof, guys. I just want everybody listening at home to appreciate the work that we put in.
It's always
And-
mountain time here.
And just to let you all know, we still managed to fail at it, so that
Yes.
makes us even better.
The failure was your new guest. That's all that failure was.
It was waiting in the wings.
It's the what is a time zone?
Yeah. But so our topic for today, though, is about the meta, right? We talk about it a lot. It's a thing that we always talk about when we talk about this game. What's happening in the meta, and specifically, what is a meta and what's a local meta, right? Because I think we get hung up talking about the global meta, and we've got a bunch of people here today who have played at big events, big name things. And Dayton, have you ever played at an event that was the global meta?
Yeah, just on one occasion, I think.
Right, but it's
But
like
a team format is different, though. To throw that in there, teams is not typically a meta. You'll see some factions that are doing really well, but the lists will not be what you come across typically in a normal tournament setting.
But even that, like, this last year was like we had the rules cut off the packet cutoff was pretty early, so it was like this really interesting snapshot of meta that was immediately not applicable to anywhere else.
Like a frozen in time little thing.
Yeah.
2 weeks
Mhm.
later, everyone's on to something else. Yeah, that makes sense.
Probably LVO is probably your best example of
I
like
think
global meta,
Yeah, that would
which
make
I've
sense to
attended the
me.
last 7.
There we
So-
go.
Oh, so I help organize and put that together too.
There we go.
There we go.
Forgot that
That was
ice.
the
Forgot
last
that
piece
title.
of dust. I was wondering where it was.
I'm sure we'll be able to find a couple more along the way.
Oh yeah, it's just the commissioner
Welcome.
cred, you know.
Look at this big dick on the channel, eh? It's actually
Yeah.
really small. Grower, not shower.
Hey,
Maybe
you
by
gotta
the end of this
compensate
episode,
with something,
it'll be 4
right?
inches.
Gotta compensate with something.
That's why I was in the gym so much. That's why I almost missed this episode.
There we go.
Well, if we get to 4 inches, we've done something right. We've really entertained a lot of people.
There we go. I was complaining about always having the 4-inch armies, and that almost went on my Team Ireland shirt for Six Nations.
Oh boy.
Because I was doing KO, and then there's orcs, play OBR, all 4-inch move armies.
Just find someone with small hands. You're good.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're golden.
Oh. But so the point being is that the global meta is actually a pretty rare occurrence that you actually run into it, and we all play more frequently than not in our own local metas.
Mm.
And how does that
Indeed.
change our thoughts on what we're bringing and how we play, if at all?
Exactly.
It's off.
I'll jump in with a thought. I think
Sure.
a lot of people are typically chasing their idea of the global meta, but running hard in the local one, and they don't think about that difference. Like, what does that actually mean for how their preparation deviates from reality? When they're actually getting some matchups, and I think it's a really interesting thing just to consider.
Absolutely. So like, I know here, if I'm playing at my local store, which is Underworld Gaming, in Tala, we have a good number of people who play regularly. We don't have all factions really covered. I know like KO is a faction that rises and falls. We don't see it. It's not consistent. I'm one of the people contributing to that inconsistency. I know Gloomspite gets not a faction we see all the time around here. Frankly, my local meta is figuring out how to beat whatever Mick Wendell is bringing. That's usually what I'm
Clothes.
checking for. Yeah,
It's clothes. Clothing is
Yeah.
the answer to that question.
Without a doubt. I think that's a fair point. So like really like your particular day-to-day tournament and game scene, Miles, is radically different from what someone might consider the global one. And I guess it's the same over here. There's a number of game shops and different good clubs I encounter, but most of the time if I'm going to play against a competitive set, it's going to be the wicked dicey people. So if I was trying to really take it home, I'd have to mentally plan for whatever Anthony is playing. Like that would be on a really, really good day for me. Probably not even possible, but still, that's the meta for me. Like what does that particular crew bring in right now? It's not whatever comes out of a stat show or
Sure.
tends to show up as like the high win army, unless they're using it.
Yeah, I think in our area of the world here, we kind of have like a little condensed amount of people who are unreasonably good and place high in RTT, well, in basically any tournaments, all the way up to LVO, right? Not generally high rankers. So it's an interesting mix. We have the people who just play at a top level all the time, and you got to kind of pick and choose what kind of list you're going to bring, right? Are you bringing a list that you want to have fun with, play something unique and enjoy, without winning every single game? Or do you have to essentially tool out the most insane list that you have? Like my regular practice games are against guys who generally place high in tournaments. We have like Matt Beasley around the area who is just a monster. Amazing dude, by the way.
On the table, not
Yeah.
socially.
Socially, my social games with him. He's just such a horribly mean person. Just the worst mean person I've ever run into. Of course, I'm kidding, Beasley. You are always the
Matt
most
Beasley's
fun
like a
game.
raccoon. Matt Beasley's like a raccoon. If you try to take him out of that garbage can, he gets really feisty. But once he's in there, he's good. And the metaphor being the trash can being the gaming table.
Yep. I thought it was Sage for a
It's
bit.
the only time he's at home is when he's on that gaming
There we
table.
go.
Other than that, he's just an awkward bastard.
Yep. I mean, and I'm awkward too, so it fits right with me. But we also have Ricky Fisher, who just won the Tacoma Open, right? Or not won. I think he did win, right? Did we have him on
unreasonably
here?
high?
Yeah.
He placed
Unreasonably
unreasonably high at the Tacoma Open.
Yeah, he's now
and
the
then-
big get on campus.
Yeah,
Yes,
we
exactly.
have a ton of like really good players, and we have Vessier, all of the people that come up for like some of the bigger tournaments. So like with my meta, I generally have to pick, am I going to go all out? Because I'll be 100% honest. I never want to get to a top table because I play Warhammer for fun. And so like my goal is usually, if I'm coming in with my idea of a competitive list, I'm like, I just want a 4-1. Just a 4-1. That's fine. I don't need a 5-0. I don't need to be in the top 10.
Matt, are you saying the only way to have fun is not to win?
Ooh.
Well, kind of, yeah. So so what I'm getting at here, and you kind of hit that right on the hammer, or right on the head, the nail on the head with the
Don't hit
hammer.
a hammer.
And I need more coffee for this.
You were a metaphor master today, Matt.
I truly am.
Listen,
I am not an
what
octopus.
I'm discovering about Matt right now is when he's conversing, his eyes and everything are all over the place. It's like a bear is trying to tear apart the front entrance of his house right now, but he's also trying to then have a conversation because he's always like looking back.
The horrible thing is that bear is work emails, which just keep on popping up as I'm sitting here. So
that bear is real.
Yeah, the bear really is real.
Sounds like a real bear to deal with.
Yeah, it really is. The thing for me, I enjoy not being at the competitive level where I can give the opponent that, hey, roll a dice on a 4 and up. It's fine. You forgot that one thing. We're not a phase later, right? I enjoy that level of play. When you get to a higher table and you have to actually hold yourself and everybody else accountable, like obviously you want to hold yourself accountable for every move you make. But when it comes down to being like, no, man, that's like, you just move that unit like 3 inches onto an objective. That's 3 inches more than your, movement for that unit. Like, that's when it gets to be like, okay, well, we're down point to point to point to point to point. And for me, that's never been an enjoyable way to play the game. I prefer
Bear with me, if you
casual
will.
and crush.
Nice.
That's a conversation to have with every single game against your opponents, though, is to establish
yeah.
those rules right away. And you can still play top level turn like table 5 or table 1 on the 5th round and have that conversation of, hey, if there's something that that your intent was there and you just missed it and you want to go back and things haven't gone ahead, then yes. Or you play the game where you play against the Danes, who are fantastic and amazing people, but they are, this is it. This is now. There's no going back. We're doing everything with sticks.
You took your fingers off the chess piece.
The game is precise, but like once you understand that, then cool. As long as you're both playing to that level, it's fine. But whatever, you just need to set that level before that game even begins.
That makes a lot of sense. Like expectations set, there's not going to be as many hurt feelings or troubles that kind of arise from it. So I'm 100% get that.
But to do that, you need to be confident at the table, right?
Yeah, you have to say it beforehand. It can't come up like halfway through turn 2 when it matters, right?
My last 15 games I've played in tournament settings have done so with a chess clock. And I would say maybe 2 of those opponents have played with the chess clock before. But it's not something that was like a negative. You just have that conversation beforehand and say, listen, I'm going to be playing with a chess clock. Like, you don't give them the option. I was a server and a bartender and a bouncer for like 10 years in my life in the city. If you lead things off with a question, you're always going to get a rebuttal if you say direct. But then what you do is you're like, if you've never used it, cool, I'll run it for us. And it's not going to be a big decider in this game. But if anything, it's going to be just another learning experience about how you are playing the game. And it's not a big bully. But then once I get used to it, awesome. Because honestly, we're all playing with the same amount of time, and to take more time playing your game than me isn't a fair way to play the game. So everyone should be getting used to a chess clock.
That
Very
makes
true.
a lot of sense, actually, and I think kind of introduces a good side topic, which is kind of related to like the local versus true meta, where maybe the chess clocks are only feature sometimes. But when you do that, have you run into situations where folks completely blow out their time? It's like turn one, they're done, and like how do you handle that situation if they're sort of learning and maybe they're not learning quick enough for that particular game?
You give them the
Yeah.
warning, right? The guy's a TO who runs tournaments, and the one I just put on sale was sold out in 2 days, and then I had to expand it by 10 people, and because my wait list is still there, so that's great, awesome. People love my tournament, it's great.
Hey, look, it's a good problem to be, a good situation.
Yes,
to be in.
it is.
But when you walk around and I see those players, aka LLV, who hasn't rolled dice in like 3 years, and he has like 20 models on the table and he's not finishing his games, I just talk to him like, dude, I'm gonna hit you with a chess clock on your next games if you can't get it together. Like, you just can't do that. Like, this is not an excuse. Like, you play, keep it going for it, and you just give them that warning. Because a lot of times when people are messing up or not doing things properly, they just need to be aware of it. A lot of people aren't aware of these situations. So then go back to the meta conversation. Are the people that are achieving and going 5-0 in their meta and tournaments actually playing out their full game?
Yeah, that's
Right?
a really
So
good question. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Because if you try to take that attitude against a player who knows what they're doing and will be able to steer that game, they're going to lose horribly, because that shit ain't allowed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was actually something we had to crack down on Hawkwound the last time. Some people will start early thinking that they can get more game in, like even before dice on the table. And that's actually something in the meta around here that I've noticed that people need to kind of like queue up to when they're finally coming around to it. But that's a good point.
Yeah,
There's
I did
exceptions to that
notice
too. I'm going to talk over you, Miles. This is my
Oh,
show.
that's
now.
okay.
You'll have those games though, they're like super, super tight between like top tables, and they're just having an amazing time, and they're in like round 4, but the game is extremely tight to the point where you just can't talk it through. Like, dice rolls have to be made. There are a few exceptions, and if it's going into like lunchtime or whatever, that maybe there's some ground. If they both agree, then there is sometimes there's that wiggle room that you have to make a decision as a TO to do, right?
Yeah.
Because typically those players would always, they're not an issue. It's just that particular game is so intense that it is becoming an issue. But if they're both culprits, then it's something that you can talk through.
And it's usually really apparent after like game 2 of a five game tournament who's already, pulling out in the lead with the longest turns. Usually.
Yeah, I always, and like I know there's a bunch of probably well, I don't know if they listen to this podcast, but Imperial Guard players out there who are like, I'm like, dude, if you can't finish 5 rounds of the game, your strategy is not a viable strategy.
Why do you got to bring 40K into this conversation?
I'm just saying.
We can go down.
This was a friendly place.
Yeah.
This was a game that could not. This is the game that should not be named. This is its moniker in this here house.
You mean the game system that actually forced me to play AOS because it was just not a fun experience?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
wow.
yeah.
Let's talk about that one.
Dayton, you didn't get into this because swords and magic are superior to pew pew guns?
Well,
no.
and the superior models, let's be honest.
The game system is completely different from 40K. Lore and theme aside, the game system itself is different.
We got to be careful here, guys. I'm pretty sure if we say 40K in a mirror 3 times, it just ruins the environment.
Yeah, the Swarm Lord appears and deletes my life.
I was going to say Matt Ward appears. All right.
But that brings up an interesting point. The local metas, regardless of where they are, and the community as a whole, I think with AOS is a much friendlier and more fraternal environment than I would say the 40K environment is. So I gotta at least give us that. I have never been part of a more positive community or supportive community at the very least, even when OBR was the worst.
Matt, I've been tearing it down since I met you. What are you talking about?
I mean, you're Canadian. It's what you do.
No, we're supposed to be supportive and polite. I'm sorry.
That's true, but with a twist. with a
The
twist.
counterculture, Canadian counterculture.
That's right. That's right.
Is that what Canadian counterculture is? It's
It's like ribbing and
maybe a little bit passive aggressive, and
No, we're more physical than most.
there we go.
Just because the elements. But yeah, sorry, you wanted to talk about like comparing against our local meadows as opposed to the global meadows?
Yeah, I guess I just thought it would be interesting for, just for like people who don't get to play outside their local meta, and we always hear the news from T Sports or the Meta Watch or whatever about what's happening in the global meta, and how like, I don't have to care if OBR are really good. If no one plays OBR at my shop, I never have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But if you ever want to take it to a higher level, so Corey,
then you certainly do have to worry about OBR. Yeah,
Corey from Wicked Dicey's been doing this thing. He's been starting last year, and it's a really neat idea that the winner of tournaments then gets a ticket to another tournament.
Ooh.
So like the winner of, I think, False Alarm last year, which was one of the tournaments I hosted, got a free ticket to the Wicked Dicey
Everwinter?
Yeah, I think it was Everwinter.
Coming up soon.
Because he runs a few. But anyways, so you got a free ticket to that. So it's a really neat concept of, if you win in your meta, now take those skills and apply it to another meta, and let's see how you do. Because it's a really neat self-awareness of seeing how you actually do in other regions. And then those skills are actually really good to have when you want to start taking this experience a little bit further, and you start going to like the LVOs or start applying for your team, nation, AOS worlds positions and stuff like that. Those are things that we consider, because I'm also in the committee for bringing and deciding on who goes in and whatnot.
Sure.
That's something I look for, because if you're really good in Toronto, then you're like, that doesn't mean a whole lot to me. Can you apply those skills elsewhere? Are you making the effort to actually see if you can do well in other metas? I played in a tournament with Matt Beasley, and I won that tournament, Matt. And it wasn't until I visited.
I hope he listens to this one just for that.
I called him on it at Worlds. Actually, it was really funny. We were all BSing, having drinks and stuff. And he was talking about, dude, I'm like, Matt, you didn't start talking to me until I started winning. Because we had the same tournament. It was funny. I was 3-0 after the first day, and then he came around and started talking to me. That, I was just bugging him. That wasn't the full reason, I think. But it was pretty interesting.
That's funny.
That was in Spokane.
My first tournament against him, my very first game of my first tournament in Washington was against Matt Beasley, and he was running Zinch with an allied Vermin Lord, just so that he could Kairos Fate Dice the Hot 12 onto it, summon the free bell or whatever it was. That was the bell, so he could summon the free Vermin Lord. And he was like, I don't care what happens in this game as long as I summon a free Vermin Lord.
It's always Zinch if it's Matt Beasley.
Yeah.
It's
and if he can
that way.
if he can eliminate dice rolls, then that's what he's going to take. Because that's a very common theme that you see in some of the top players, and what they do is, obviously, if you can remove percentage and chance.
No, absolutely.
But he's a beast. I joke him all the time, but yes, Matt Beasley is very much one of the top players in the world for sure.
Yeah,
he just can't win tournaments that I show up to.
Well, it helps when you're playing the snake to his mongoose, or the mongoose, whatever the metaphor is there.
To be fair, we never matched up. We were both undefeated, but we just never met up at the end.
That's a really interesting point. Jack and I both play in a Blood Bowl league, and frequently what we find is it doesn't matter how good the team is. If you're a team that has to roll more dice, you're going to lose.
That's why those teams that are low skilled like that, you want to get the rerolls to increase your chances, because that's better spent than
nice. I see those goat men.
Nice.
Yeah, if you ever want to get into like chancing and stuff, Blood Bowl is definitely one of the ones that makes your brain work the hardest to figure out those chances, because it's actually a really good game to apply those skills to other things too.
I think so too. I mean, even just that notion of like minimizing the chance for something to go wrong, like avoid the dice roll, that's so applicable to AOS, like you were just saying, Dave.
You'll see it in inexperienced players a lot of times too, like when they're trying to do a charge roll that's really not that important, and then they spend the reroll because they just want it, and it's like, well, that's really not the one you're going for. Like, lead off If you need that reroll, you want to spend that CP, then lead off with that.
Yep.
Or if something is crucial to another charge, then lead off with that one.
Yeah.
You know, if my 10 blood letters don't make it in, I'm not going to send in the one blood master by himself, right? So lead off with those ones. And just remember to always, like, if you want to speed up the game, if we're going to go back to that conversation and you're rolling in charge rolls, roll the charge roll first. Don't even think about it, just roll it. That decision is going to be made for you right then and there. If you get the big hide, then it's going to open up different options anyways. Like, you don't have, that's the neat thing. Like, when you roll a charge roll, you don't have to charge. You can just say, cool.
No,
Just
exactly. You can roll and decide it later. You know, I roll charge rolls for stuff that are just within 12 inches of something, and like, cool. I wasn't planning on charging with this, but I'm gonna roll it, and then
no, now you're slowing down the game, Miles. Come on. Fuck.
Well, just like, look, I wasn't like, my plan was not to charge with this thing, but if I got a hot 11, I could make this, you know, I could do something cool.
I think it's fun for you, Miles.
Is a hot 11 a sex move?
I don't know.
I mean, it could be from now on.
It could be now. I think
Sounds
with the right amount
like
of elbow grease and ingenuity, you can make it whatever you want it to be.
A little bit of
needs to
lube,
be.
you're good to go.
Yeah. Definitely with a hot 11.
Tears.
But yeah, you can't get hot 11s if you don't roll it.
I think it's psychologically very fun though, Miles, for you. Just as a side note, I mean, you trying to roll the charge for your ironclad, people are not going to know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, look, I wasn't going to charge with this, but if I got a 12 on dice, I can get this somewhere you really don't want it to be.
So
I'd also be fine if it sat where it was.
So
Definitely a
maybe,
might as well situation.
Yeah,
just thinking a little bit about this meta delta, right? I mean,
okay.
Of course, if you start going to tournaments, different places, right? You're traveling for like LVO or Nova or Everwinter or something, and you live somewhere else, you're getting a splash of different stuff. But I'm kind of curious, like if people think that there are really off meta metas somewhere, like, you know, pocket metas that people are living in, where there's maybe a cluster of 4 game stores is doing a totally different thing, and that it's jarring for someone to come to the tournament scene. Has anybody seen or talked to a tournament player who's run into that when they first kind of jumped into the wider scene?
It's mostly the players. You'll find that certain players will run really skew and weird lists that will then make people think, and they like, and those are like your little meta breakers. I know there's like the English meta gets like that quite a bit, where people will jump on whatever's the hottest. So what was it, like Lumineth Castle, Teclis Castle was going really, really hot. So then Math Mallow designed a Sylvaneth list just to beat that, and then he went into a tournament and he faced it like 4 times and beat it every time and ended up winning the tournament with like a list that shouldn't, like, it does have bad matchups, but he looked at what his meta was and he designed a list to crush it, and he did really well with it, which is hilarious. And then to hear him talk about it is awesome. Fucking Math Mallow is the best. The guy's got so much crazy over the top ADHD. It's hilarious to listen to him and talk. He's just right to the point on everything. But what's the other one? The Elven guy right now, he ran that Marathi list where he's being super aggressive with Little Marathi and Big Marathi, and then he's running a Tree Lord with it too. And he's
I saw that.
Run like 2 tournaments. So it's like those little things too. Those are meta breaking because no one else is doing that, and they're doing really well in their tournament scene, right? And then you look at Rune from the Danes, which people have talked endlessly about. Charismatic bastard. He designed a list that was very hard to counter, right? And then they made people think. So, and he was
playing
successful.
the cowboy elves.
Yeah, he was playing Lumineth, but he was only he had 1 unit that actually was affected, like got the -2. He had one cow, he had Teclis, and then he had just a bunch of like Dawnbringers and stuff, no shooting whatsoever. And then when people tried to run that and played against it in Worlds for prep and stuff, we were just like, this list sucks. Like, what is he trying to do? And that was it. Like, people just didn't really know. They didn't take it seriously, and they didn't really know what to throw against it. So that was like an off meta pick, right? For that reason. That's the reason why he ran it.
Sure. I definitely remember hearing an account from the Serbian team. I remember they had which was their first Worlds last year.
Ours too. Crazy.
And yeah, exactly. And they were very pumped going into it, thinking that, you know, they had sort of played in their little isolated pocket meta, and they had thought that they had some really interesting ideas, and then they upon reflection, maybe had a little bit of a rude awakening with some of the things they thought were going to work.
I think, yeah, they went in with the wrong expectations, in my personal opinion. I talked to that group quite a bit.
Yeah, they're very nice guys.
Natasha. They unfortunately don't have like a huge playing scene, and then TTS isn't really an option for them either, because like as she was saying, most of them have own computers that if they tried to run TTS, they would just explode.
Sure.
So like they do like a lot of proxy, like when they were doing all their prep work and stuff. So like you're getting people that don't play the army, and then you try to play the army, which is always going to be a different experience. And then that goes into your meta talk too. You don't have to chase those net lists. If you know an army really, really well, like the back of your hand, and you go into it, that will give you a lot of edge.
Sure.
But the biggest thing, I guess, if you want to compete, though, is just system awareness is a big part of our game system. If you know what your opponent can do, that's just going to help you out so much. Like the amount of times when I play against someone, they're like, "Oh, I've never played against Khorne before, or Bellacore," and you're like, "Oh, buddy,
this is not going to go well."
I'll explain everything that's going to happen, but it's rough.
You're not going to digest it in time.
I'm going to do Magic Dom. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't. Yes.
What do you mean? I can stop it. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
I'm gonna do bait and trap. I'm like, don't do that.
Don't
He's
do
like,
that
what?
either, yeah.
I can pull you into combat. But it's my turn. Yep. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna try anyways. I'm like, all right.
Yeah. But also, realizing that, if you are looking to do better in your own local meta, just focusing on the people who are going to show up, the list that they bring, and not worrying about the global meta as a first step is also a great first stepping stone into just improving your game is that awareness of what is actually around you, what you're going to see, right?
Like any sport, if you want to improve and do better, play with and against good people. We're not all monsters, dude. We're just a bunch of nerds who like to spend an endless amount of times as solitary in our little hobby rooms painting plastic figures. If you reach out to these players that are consistently winning in your area, then just start playing games against them. You're going to learn more in that than you are any other way, especially on your own, right? And then you can have those discussions, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's unless it's that easy. It's better just to talk to him in zeros and ones.
Yep,
that's true. You need to have like a binary
sometimes you need a beep and a boop in there, just a beep boop.
I thought I saw it too.
Him and Matthias together are just hilarious. Speak the same language.
Oh, they enjoy the hell out of each other.
Yeah, they're good guys.
Yeah.
Nerds.
Bunch of nerds. Jack, what were you saying?
I was saying that's really just fantastic advice for the whole listener base, though. It's like, if you want to improve, figure out who in your local area wins the tournaments, who's like, grabbing the brass ring consistently, asking questions, play games with them, get yourself stopped a few times, and you'll learn reams because they'll be showing you what works.
Yeah. To Dayton's point a little while ago, like every time I go up against something new, I expect to get absolutely crushed by it. No matter no matter the relative, experience gap between me and my opponent, if we're, sort of similar players or very different players, if I don't know what it does, even if you tell me, there's no chance I'm going to internalize that in time.
There's sort of an interesting thing around that. Oh, Dayton, go ahead. Interrupt you.
Yeah. Fuck you, Jack. I'm the guest. No. I'm going to argue you, Miles, which is then a point that I made. So I'm actually arguing myself. To go back to, if you know your army really, really well and exactly what you need to accomplish, you can actually still compete even against stuff that you don't really know.
Yep. I'm not saying it's hopeless. I just, I set my expectations low for those things with like, and to be fair, I play a lot of games. It's very rare that I come up against something that I like, I've never seen this before. What is this? What is going on here?
Yeah.
Darren Watson will tell you that your emotional state and what you bring to the table already decides the game. So if you think you're not feeling in with confidence, then I'm sorry, Miles, you're not going to do it.
It's probably what it is. It's really
so tilt is real. Miles needs to work on his winning attitude and be less defeatist.
That's almost certainly true. Yeah.
But I think it's kind of interesting though, just on that point, where if you run into the thing and you haven't read the book that whoever the person is running it, and so there's all this stuff in there you're probably not super situationally aware of. That could be a big gotcha moment. No, it's not really a gotcha. It's just like you walk right into the thing that you haven't experienced before. And I guess maybe there's a question around that is do you need to get stomped by something to really internalize it, or can you just pick up the book and like look over all the possibilities and feel good about like that constructive awareness? I at least find that when I get run over by something like, you know, a blood tithe running me into combat and dropping a battle tactic or something like that when I'm playing Corn or some other thing out there, that's really quite constructive in terms of remembering what not to do or what to be aware of versus just sort of like skimming rules.
Jack, did you do a leading question and then answer it yourself? That's amazing. Something that I'll do to that context too. Like if I play a game against something I'm not super familiar with, I'll play the game to the best of my abilities. But then once that tournament is over, I go back to those books against the factions that I didn't feel 100% with and just go back over the rules. I'll Wahapedia while I'm playing people. Like if there's something in my head, or if something triggers me right away and I'm like, let's see that. Like, I don't care. That's on my time, but bring out your book. Let's see that to make sure. And challenge people. And a lot of times, honestly, this game has so many fucking rules to it. It's almost impossible to keep track of them all. But you know, it might not be exactly the way that people interpret things, right? And it's not that they're trying to do that with intent. It's just what you read is interpreted differently in your head, right?
And that's totally fair. And yes, Dayton, that is exactly what I did.
That's a pro move right there.
I think to circle back though, like the knowledge of your own army and how you're going to score battle tactics, regardless of what you're up against, is just as important as the meta around you. Like if you aren't like super comfortable, know all your rules to a T, right? You're not going to do well against something else you don't really know.
That's true. Well, maybe it's a fun question there. Like, isn't that the move right now to find as many battle tactics as you can, like 100% achieve without interaction or possibility of frustration? So you have that game plan there. So then if you're doing that, you are less susceptible to being messed with by some other.
There's that old Magic the Gathering advice of make sure your opponent's playing your game, right? Don't play their game.
There's a great Mike Tyson quote: everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to interpret that quote.
You could have your own idea of how you're going to do things, and then you play against that Arjaws player that fully sends fucking 21 pigs at you that are doing mortals on 6s and double damage. Now what are you doing? Now you're playing, how the hell do I get away from this?
Yeah, well, that's it. Now you're playing their game. This is what they wanted to do.
Yeah. But that is interesting, thinking about building your list in a vacuum as opposed to, you know, what you're going to come up against with your local meta or even your global meta if you're going that far out, right? So I don't know.
He says he contemplates adjusting his headphones.
Yes.
He's still looking at that bear trying to get in his house.
I know. It's just, seriously, people, it's just thunk, thunk, thunk,
it's
thunk,
through the hedge
thunk,
now.
thunk, thunk.
It's through the hedge.
No, I mean, I think I don't know. I don't know how I can come out with a completely defined way of how I would interact with every list out there or build to a meta. I notoriously have built lists that I just not given a single fuck for the past like year and a half, to be honest.
Yeah, like your orcs and porks, legendary in that respect. Oof.
Yeah, it's just like whatever.
Be fine.
Yeah, it'll totally work.
We have a saying in this part, which is be grand.
Yeah.
There is something to be said for that too. Is just make a list, make an army that you know exactly what it does, and don't worry about the rest of it. I actually really enjoy getting my ass kicked by a new thing I don't know what it is, because I love seeing an army when everything's going its way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once I know what this thing is trying to do, and when everything's going well for it, what does that look like? Then you can pick that apart.
Yeah. But that's the visceral moment I was talking about, Miles, where like it grinds you into a paste And now you have it burned into your memory. It's much less conceptual at that point.
Yeah, exactly. I know where all the buffs were. I know where they were coming from. I know what the series of bad choices that I made.
Yeah.
I love getting drunk, rolling dice, and meeting new people.
That's also a good strategy.
Honestly, pretty much the reason we all do this.
There's a really
Very
good
much
picture
so.
of Worlds where I'm playing Dave Kerr, which is the top player of AOS, Australia meta, and he's intent and looking in the game hard, and I'm finishing off my beer.
That's the way to do it. That's
It was fun. Super playing him. He was a very intense player, and I kept trying to take him out of it. He was doing things like he was backspinning, like when he rolls. He's one of those hard rollers, and I'm just like, dude, you pitch. He was like, what? I'm like, look at that backspin, man. And then he's just like, what? No, get. At some point, you tell me to shut up, or you just go with it. That's usually the experience you get with me.
That's it. That's your own psyops campaign against getting people out of their own zone, right? Everybody at that level has their own little stupid little baseball routine, batting routine for how they're gonna play this game and the mindset they want to be in. And I do think there's absolutely strategy of how do I get you into my headspace, right? Because I want to have fun and joke around, and that's when I'm doing my best. And if you want to be all serious, you can be all serious, but I'm going to be poking at that bear.
I think that's just bear with me, right? Where we make more puns, but I think that's kind of the approach I take as well. I mean, because you want people to be in a common space with you to enjoy this game, and honestly, you'll do better if you're comfortable, and you're going to be most comfortable if they're on your wavelength, right? I mean, if I'm playing someone who's a gloom cloud and that they're very much in this other kind of zone, it's jarring. So I want them to come over to my realm.
Yeah.
Get over here.
I like the strong agreement, Dayton. Thanks for validating me.
I was more just covering the silence. It's getting pretty awkward.
That's okay.
Anything longer than 3 seconds, eh? Yeah. I mean, yeah, just have fun, dude. Like, kick my ass. That's the biggest thing. That's a good mind state to have into when you're even entering a tournament and trying to compete for your meta. Is like, don't be afraid to lose, because everyone's going to take their L's, man. I think the only person that can't take L's is Jeremy Facier, because he just doesn't flip and lose. Anthony Trentinelli is another good one too, but his lists more get him than his actual play style. But yeah, there's some good players out there, and look at they'll show you some things.
I remember this. We had this new guy at the club. This was years ago. This was before Age of Sigmar even existed. That's how old we're going back down memory lane. But and it was this guy, and he was trying to get his army to work for him. And he always got so mad. And part of it, I think, was the giant 32-ounce half Surge, half Mountain Dew that he was drinking. But
I remember that guy.
Yeah, and he'd always get so pissed. And I'm like, dude, how many games of this have you played? Like 15? Play another 15. You are not, like, any success that you have up to this point has been purely accidental, right? Like these games are hard. There's a lot going on, and smart or terrible moves that you make early on may take 2 or 3 turns to play out why that was a good move or why that was a bad move.
Oh yeah. Plus, he's fed into his own successes or failures there, right? Like, he goes in so intense, he's taken so seriously, he's just primed for tilt. One little thing goes wrong, it's going to snowball.
Oh, man.
Well, I do that with my partner, because she plays with me, which is just a horrible experience for her. I'm sorry. But like when she went into her first tournament in September up the Northern Waste 42 player tournament.
Nice. How'd she do?
She won 2 games. She won best painted as well, so that was cool.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
But like, her expectation, and I was telling her up to it, like, your games are not going to be against me. Like, it's not. I swear, like, you're going to have more fun. And her biggest thing was she just wanted to understand her army and know that she was playing to a level that she knew her army. She didn't want people to tell her how to play her army, which is a really good way to look at it, I guess.
I think also, especially for women in this space, like, that's like, there's a lot of know-it-all guys who want to tell you how to play your army.
Well, you automatically assumed her gender.
Well, I think you might have said it, but I've
didn't.
seen
I said
pictures.
partner.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All
right.
I'm just kidding. I'm just
I have been called out. It's fine.
but yeah, she was just like, I just wanted to win one game. And that was her whole expectation. And then she won 2. And then she won best painted and she was super stoked. And she had fun.
Fantastic experience at that point,
And then she played games and she understood her fuck ups. Because that's another thing too, right? Because you're not going to improve and do well in your meta if you don't know where your fuck ups.
Yeah, no, for sure. Oh man, I feel like we've gotten to a good Dayton. Having been on this podcast for a little while now, is it weird? Is it weird to be on somebody else's podcast?
Yeah,
no, not at all. Depends on the podcast and how people run, right?
Yeah,
that's good.
It's when you're not hosting. It's a way better experience. Like Rob, the Honest Wargamer, says all the time. He loves going on other people's podcasts because he doesn't have to steer the conversation.
Right, he does stick around and
but he does it naturally, right?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
The guy's a fucking charmer and a half.
Yeah,
strong personality. Good guy.
Good guy. Good list.
Good guy. Good list. Yeah, I do like that idea. Along for the ride when you're with the guest. It's fun. Just got to see where it goes.
I can't screw up. I got no fans to please.
Yeah,
exactly. You guys, I gotta sink this fucking ship.
The pressure is on us. Our blended talk here. What is it like? Always strikes all points, or party the strikes last. For
party at the strikes last. I love that.
Do you understand what party at the all points means? What was that reference to?
The all
points? The Varenspire. Well, before it was the Varenspire.
Yeah, before it was
used to be reference. It used to be reference. It's the 8 points now. I think is what most. But it's been also referenced the all points. So that's always the hardest part about doing a podcast. It's coming up in the name.
That's true.
It is. Matt and I went through it a long list.
Yeah, we did actually. That was weird, wasn't
it? And then you also want an abbreviation that sounds like a venereal disease.
Exactly. We also have had a lot of American Sign Language.
Yep.
Confusion.
That's our closest to the pin, maybe.
Age, sex, location. That one comes up a lot, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think we should leave that harder, actually.
How long have you guys been doing the podcast now?
We're into our 3rd year.
There you go.
Yeah.
Chugging along.
For something that has a shelf life of potato salad, you're doing well.
Dude, exactly, right? Which reminds me, we almost got all the way through the podcast. We had a new Patreon subscriber, and it's our good friend Charles. So it's not so thank you, Charles, for supporting us emotionally and physically, but also monetarily as well.
Absolutely. Charles,
come back.
We appreciate you.
Come back. We miss you, Charles.
Yeah, toss a buck to the things that you enjoy, right? It really helps us producers. You want to do podcasts that you listen to all the time? Toss them a coin. That porn site you've been going to a lot of time, you know what? Give them a tip.
Exactly.
Just a tip.
You're like
OnlyFans? Get on there.
There we go. Dayton, you got anything going on that you want to promo?
Nothing next other than, I guess, I'm recording for the Left Naha as well as the Métis. Represent. And False Alarm sold out. That's pretty sweet. We're doing a fundraiser campaign. So I've got a handful of really talented artists, and we're going to be doing a Sons of Bahamut army painted. So it's
fun.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's the Stomper tribe. So it'll be one of each. So Gatebreaker, Kraken Eater, and what the hell, what's the big dudes? The Crusher dudes. The one that has to lead it. He has to lead it. Stomper.
The Stomper.
War Stomper.
War Stomper.
Yep.
Yeah. War Stomper is your general, and then it's 4 babies. So man crushes. And 2 dropless, pretty sweet. But it's all gonna be themed around their crushing and breaking up a castle. So the base and everything. And then teal will be the color scheme that fits through it all to bring it all together.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And I got really good artists on board. And one other guy, he used to be the head painter for the Frontline Gaming Studio. Brandon. Cool. He's painting up Radikar the Beast as well. So if you don't win the army, you might win the beast. So
nice.
Definitely looking forward to seeing that when it's all done.
It's gonna be really impressive on the table rakes. It's just everyone is a center figure, right? So then they'll be raffled off at False Alarm, and all the proceeds going towards muscular dystrophy.
That's fantastic.
Awesome. Got to do good, right? We got platforms.
No, and you said you are adding more spots, or I
did already. So I started at 32 because LOV wanted 32 because that's a perfect number.
Sure.
You will only have one undefeated if you have 32 players.
Yeah.
And then my wait list. So I sold that out in 2 days, and then my wait list went to 11 people. And I went and looked, and I was able to secure more spots and stuff. And my printer's ripping right hard. And I'm going to do a big order to FLG after this too for mats.
Nice.
So we're at 42 people now, and I still have a wait list. So that's pretty fun. Who doesn't want to come play in a fire hall and have lunch?
I want to come.
Same
I
here.
was
Sounds pretty fantastic.
I was following Tom Megan's epic journey at the last tournament you hosted, and man, I was jealous. I was absolute. The FOMO was unreal.
Yeah, if you fly all the way from Europe, I'm pretty much going to show you a good time for a week.
Well, yeah, we are over here. We are gearing up for Six Nations, which is at the start of November. So really got to lock those lists in. And we're also, printing up a storm of terrain, trying to get mats. I feel your pain there. It's gonna be really exciting.
Yeah, Six Nations will be entertaining. I'm sure no one will be putting a hard eye on England.
No, I know, right? Oh, it's been so good.
Fuck.
Yeah.
We did it, guys. We made it.
Yeah.
Everyone who's listened this far, do all the things, like, subscribe, get all of your friends involved. You're not
Dayton,
wherever playing friends involved.
Dayton, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been great. Hopefully we have lived up to your expectations of how to do a podcast. You're definitely
just like Worlds, the bar is very low.
Yeah.
So really, you did well.
You're definitely
above it. Yes.
You're definitely our guest with the most podcasting experience by a long shot.
Dude, do you ever go back to like your earlier episodes and just listen to them just to see
they're
the
awful.
experience level? It's amazing.
I have a hard time listening to our current episodes.
2.5 hour long episodes.
It's been a journey, but
I'm coming off of mute. I'm muting the other side of work that I'm in right now. 2.5 hour long episodes. Oh my God, Miles, what the hell were we doing?
I don't know.
It
was the pandemic. We had lots of time to kill.
Things were slightly tightened up.
Well, listen, a lot of the times you're just trying to tread water and figure just to stay afloat.
Exactly.
The skills come later, and that's an experience-based thing. This is not a natural thing. Luckily, I got some great co-hosts with Tristan and Bud to really make me sound good, because without those two, I got nothing. No one wants to listen to this mug
as
for an
evidenced by your performance today.
No, I'm just an idiot with an audience. That's all I am.
No, thank everybody. If you haven't done already, I feel like you really should have before you listen to us. Go check out Dayton's podcast, Party at the All Points.
It's Bud's podcast.
It's Bud's podcast.
It's Bud's podcast.
Okay, it's Bud's podcast that features Dayton pretty heavily.
Did you ever hear the bit behind that? The reason for how that all started?
No.
So I was down at Summer Slaughter 2 years ago, down in Pennsylvania, run by the Basement Wargamers, I think
that's right.
Yeah. Good guys, good group, good list. And so I was bullshitting with this guy, and Bud was down there with me, bullshitting with this guy for a little bit. And Bud comes walking along, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, this is my buddy Bud." And he was like, "Oh, I know Bud. Yeah, he's the host of the Party at the All Points." I'm like, "What the fuck am I?" He just looks at me. I'm like, yeah, you're right. No, he's the host for sure. I didn't even recognize he was talking to me. It was hilarious.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's Bud's show.
There we go. Well, either way, no matter whose show it is, go check it out. It's a great time. I enjoyed the musical choices. That has nothing to do with the content, but I do enjoy them.
That's all our super producer Nicole Obre.
There we go.
And at some point, if we get too big, I mean, that's going to stop because that's not legal. But we skirt around that.
Yeah.
Spotify can do it. We can do it.
There we go. Age of Sigmar podcast, skirting under the radar.
The good thing is he'll never become that popular because our game isn't that popular.
I think it's a good place to call it. Good podcast, everybody.
I think so. Thanks so much for coming on, Dayton. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for letting me rip on you guys. It's always
No,
good.
of course, dude. That's we need to keep our egos in check. Really, is the key.
Indeed.